we can find that voice. We can say, God, what do you think? What do you want me to do? Not what do I want to think and what do I want to do. I remember one time I spoke at a conference and this woman told me that her conscience was perfectly free with contraception. I said, really? And I said, I'm just a little surprised at that. And she said, why? And I said, well, John Paul II, I suspect he prays between 4 and 5 hours a day, right? And he's praying really hard. And he's asking the Holy Spirit to guide him because he's the Good Shepherd. And he doesn't want to put any burdens on us that we shouldn't have on us. He doesn't want to lead us anywhere we shouldn't go. And somehow the Holy Spirit managed to let you know that contraception is okay, but it hasn't gotten through to John Paul II. So just like, how likely is that? Right? It's just like, how likely is it? I didn't mean to mock or embarrass her, but later she said, I never thought of it that way. I never thought of it that way because the question she was asking was, am I comfortable with contraception? And apparently she was. I don't think she was asking the question, what does God think, right? What's God's view on this issue, right? That's a whole other question. I remember a nurse one telling me she worked in a hospital where after every woman had a baby, she would get a stack of pamphlets on contraceptives, right? And she was supposed to give them this stack of pamphlets. That was her job. But she would give it to these women, and the Catholics especially, she would say, you don't have to follow them. She says, well, my doctors, and she said, but why don't you pray about it? That's what Jesus wants you to do. She'd always find these in the boys' camp after it was over. Right? They've been thrown out. Right? After she challenged them, let God guide you on that. Not a pamphlet. Talk to God. Right? This is what Catechism says. Moral conscience, present at the heart of the person, enjoins him at the appropriate moment to do good and to avoid evil. It also judges particular choices, approving those that are good and denouncing those that are evil. It bears witness to the authority of truth in reference to the supreme good to which the human person is drawn, and it welcomes the commandments. When he listens to his conscience, the prudent man can hear God speaking. Again, we're not meant to take these teachings. You can't fornicate, you can't use contraception, you can't commit adultery. You say, oh, why, God, he just doesn't want us to have any fun, right? All these unreasonable demands he's making on us. As opposed to saying, no, he's telling us what is poison, right? These things are poison. And these are like the little skull of things on a piece of drugs. So don't take this into your system. This will kill you, right? This is really bad for your system. So God is not saying, well, I'm just going to put up all these arbitrary fences that keep you out of gardens of delight, right? And if you manage to stay within these fences that keep you out of the gardens of delight, I'll give you a big present at the end of time. That's not what he's doing. He's saying, I want to shape you into just, again, like upon Christ, who obeyed me in everything. He was beautiful in every way, and I want you to be beautiful in every way, right? And then when it's all over, I'm not going to have to give you anything because you're already gorgeous, right? You're already beautiful, and you're going to be absorbed into the divinity, and you'll still, of course, exist, but you're already beautiful, you're already pure, you're already good. And so it's taking poison out of our system. So these commandments are not something that are some wicked God who won't let us have fun, right? We're meant to receive these as, it's going to be hard to be, it's really hard not to have sex before marriage. It's hard to be faithful within marriage, right? It's hard not to look at pornography. But I find it very hard not to be greedy. I find it very hard not to be lazy. I don't find those things to be easy, right? But the rewards, when you manage to do that, are immense. I always like this one. I love that phrase, awakening of conscience. You see, I think these two have been sitting there making out for a while, and all of a sudden she has sense, this is going somewhere it shouldn't, right? So the awakening of conscience means, you're doing something, you're going along, you're doing something, I say, wait a second, I'm doing something I shouldn't, right? Time to bolt, time to get up and move, right? Conscience. It is important for every person to be sufficiently present to himself in order to hear and follow the voice of his conscience. This requirement of interiority is all the more necessary as life often distracts us from any reflection, self-examination, or introspection. Return to your conscience, question it, turn inward, brethren, and in everything you do, see God as your witness. I don't know about you, but I spend a lot of my time trying to get God to do my will rather than get me to do God's will. Right? I don't know about you. And I say a lot of prayers on the fly. Going into class is a big one. I'll prepare well next time, God. Right? But just save me today. Save me today. A lot of those verses on the farm. As opposed to really sitting down, and obviously if you can get in front of the tabernacle, it's really helpful. If you can get in front of the Blessed Sacrament, it's really helpful. If you've got something you really want to think about and really want to work on, and then just sit there and just try to empty yourself and say, God, talk to me. Or, I mean, if I go for an hour of Eucharistic adoration, the first 20 minutes is just talking. I mean, I'm just, now listen, I need this, and I need that, and I need something about this, and I need something about that. And then finally, about 20 minutes, I finally hear a voice that says, Janet, I know all those things. I know everything that's inside of you. The point is, you don't know what I'm wanting from you. Right? You're the one that needs to listen. He said, I don't need to listen because I already know everything that you want. So why don't you just sit back and listen, right? It's a novel thought. I thought I was the captain of the ship. You're God, you're all powerful. I'm telling you what needs to be done because you're not doing it. It needs to be done now, right? God just says, wait a second, I am a good God. What makes you think I'm not doing something, right? What makes you think I'm not doing exactly what you want done, but in the right way, not your way, but the good way, all right? We must obey our conscience. A human being must always obey the certain judgment of his conscience. If he were deliberately to act against it, he would condemn himself. Yet it can happen that moral conscience remains in ignorance and makes erroneous judgments about acts to be performed or already committed. The fact is we do always have to follow our conscience, always. Right? Always follow your conscience. The church says, even if your conscience is wrong, right? Even if your conscience is wrong, you need to follow it. You must follow an erroneous conscience. But of course you can't know it's an erroneous conscience. Oh, my conscience is wrong, but I have to follow it. So I got to do what I think is. I know fornication is wrong, but I want to perform fornication, and so I'm going to think it's right because I always need to follow my conscience. And I said, wait a second, there's something totally garbled there. The point is, if you really examine your conscience and you really believe that God is calling you to do something, you have to do it. Right? But you might be wrong. Right? So that's why you need to work very hard at getting it right. Because even if you think, if you thought, let's say you thought adultery was okay, suppose you did, and then you performed an act of adultery, it's most likely going to be devastating to your relationship, your marriage. Right? Now you thought you were doing a good thing, but the damage is there whether or not you were right or wrong. If it's a wrong thing to do, there's going to be bad consequences. The church talks about vincible ignorance. Sometimes not having a bad conscience is your own fault. This ignorance can often be imputed to personal responsibility. This is the case when a man takes little trouble to find out what is true or good, or when conscience is by degrees almost blinded through the habit of committing sin. In such cases, the person is culpable for the evil he commits. So, for instance, here's this doctor. He wants to go off and play golf, right? But he doesn't want to read the chart to see what he should be doing for this patient. So he just sort of writes a prescription on his way, right? He didn't take the trouble to inform himself. The law, he'd get in trouble with the law. He gave this person a prescription for penicillin, who was allergic to penicillin. So it was right on the chart. I didn't know. Why didn't you know? Well, I didn't read the chart. Okay. Same with the Catholic. I didn't know the church didn't teach this. Well, why didn't you know? What were you doing? I mean, most of us, we can read, right? I bet everybody in this room can read. A lot of people in the face here are Catholics as well. A long part of my life, I read the newspaper religiously every day. I would not go a day without reading the newspaper. How about the Bible every day? Wow, that's a lot of work. Right? Well, what do you think God would like me to be doing? Reading the newspaper every day or reading some of the Bible every day? He gave me the gift of being able to read. What am I doing with it? Right? We read Newsweek, we read Sports Illustrated, we read People magazine, but we don't read encyclicals, we don't read the catechism. Why not? Right? That's negligence.